Welcome to the Uncanny Valley podcast. As you navigate your daily life, have you ever paused to consider the sheer multitude of organizations operating just beneath the surface across our government and in the private sector? They're all working tirelessly to keep everything running, from safeguarding our vast borders and charting the stars to managing widespread disasters and even decrypting global communications. It truly is a vast, intricate, and often unseen world of interconnected operations. We're calling this particular exploration the complex.
Indeed. Today, our mission is to peel back the layers of this colossal machinery. We're going to delve into an astonishing array of U.S. government agencies and their private sector counterparts. Our goal is to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight, helping you understand their unique roles, the highly specialized skills required, their internal dynamics, and even the surprising points of friction within this network that profoundly impacts our lives every single day.
Get ready for some genuine aha moments, because we're about to unveil the hidden operations that underpin national security, ensure public safety, and drive scientific advancement. You'll discover a world far more specialized and interconnected than you might ever have imagined, and perhaps a profound appreciation for the dedicated individuals within it. Okay, let's begin our journey into the complex with an agency many of us have encountered directly: Customs and Border Protection, or CBP. Our immediate thought might be passport checks at an airport, maybe a brief inspection at a land crossing, but our sources reveal a truly surprising fact. CBP is, by sheer manpower, the largest law enforcement agency in the U.S. What does that immense scale truly entail beyond those, familiar points of entry?
Well, what's crucial to understand about CBP is its truly astonishing scale and multifaceted mission. You're talking over 50,000 employees, and 40,000 of those are law enforcement personnel. Their mandate is incredibly broad. It stretches from enforcing border regulations and managing visitor access, all the way to overseeing trade, cargo, and all aspects of customs and immigration. And they work in very close coordination with other powerful agencies like UNCANNY, the DEA, and the FBI. Their overarching goal is to ensure border safety while simultaneously facilitating legal commerce and travel across our vast borders. The sheer volume of this work and the breadth of responsibility, it's unlike almost any other agency.
And it's not as simple as one unified force, is it? Our sources highlight distinct operational arms within CBP, each with its own unique environment and, frankly, its own distinct culture. How do these different components work together, or perhaps sometimes against each other?
That's a critical point. Yeah, you essentially have three distinct operational arms, almost like separate services under one umbrella. There's Air and Marine Operations, AMO, which provides crucial air and maritime support, conducting surveillance and interdiction in the skies and on the water. Very high-tech stuff there. Then you have Border Patrol, BP, which patrols the vast, often remote land borders operating in really challenging wilderness environments. And finally, the Office of Field Operations, OFO, staff the formal points of entry, the airports, land border crossings, and maritime ports that most people are familiar with.
Okay.
And this creates a fascinating internal dynamic, almost three distinct cultures with different priorities and operational philosophies, which can, as you suggest, lead to internal friction and communication challenges. It's not always smooth sailing.
Thinking about those remote, dangerous environments, it sounds like CBP must have some incredibly specialized units. Tell us about the Special Operations Group, or SOG. What kind of elite capabilities do they bring to bear?
Right, the Special Operations Group, SOG. They are CBP's elite rapid response arm, capable of deploying into the most dangerous and complex situations. This includes everything from hostage rescue to tactical operations, high-risk stuff. Within SOG, you'll find the Border Patrol Tactical Unit, BORTAC. They actually have the capability to deploy into active combat zones around the world, essentially operating with military precision and tactics.
Wow.
And then there's BORSTAR, the Border Patrol Search, Trauma, and Rescue Unit. They provide advanced search and rescue capabilities and critical field medical support, often in remote, unforgiving terrains. You'll consider the daily reality for a Border Patrol agent on the ground. Our sources describe them operating much like expert hunters. They blend advanced surveillance technology like drones and infrared cameras with traditional tracking skills, meticulously following physical evidence such as footprints, tire tracks, or even residual heat signatures.
That's incredible.
It's an extraordinary blend of high-tech and almost ancient wisdom applied to a modern security challenge.
This immense scale and specialization, while impressive, also comes with significant areas of friction, as our source notes. We see internal bureaucratic trouble due to these distinct cultures and sometimes different priorities among OFO, BP, and AMO, making information sharing difficult. Plus, there's ongoing public criticism regarding their treatment of refugees and immigrants, particularly from certain regions. How do these internal and external pressures shape the agency's day-to-day operations?
Well, the internal friction is quite telling and has a profound impact. Our materials describe the OFO operative persona as someone whose loyalty is firmly rooted in serving the American people. They're skilled at reading microexpressions, voice pitch to evaluate intentions, seeing the law as pretty much black and white. Their work environment is generally stable, regular hours.
Right.
In stark contrast, the Border Patrol agent thrives in remote, often austere areas. They're making critical, autonomous judgments in the field where headquarters support might be days away.
Totally different worlds.
Exactly. These contrasting operational philosophies and environments naturally create internal strain, making cohesive action and seamless information sharing, frankly, unnecessarily difficult sometimes. And this internal dynamic is then exacerbated by the constant public and political scrutiny CBP faces, particularly concerning its role in immigration and refugee issues, which further complicates its already demanding mission. It's a complex and often thankless role they play.
Okay, moving from the vastness of border security to more domestic threats, we encounter the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, or ATF. We often associate them with raids and investigations of violent criminals, but our sources reveal some incredibly niche, almost arcane processes they still rely on. What does that tell us about the unique challenges they face?
The ATF certainly does have a unique operational footprint, with a relatively modest 2015 budget of around $1.2 billion and a comparatively small force, about 2,000 special agents. Their core work involves regulating firearm commerce and, crucially, tracing weapons used in crimes back to their origins. But here's where we see a surprising illustration of how legal frameworks can dictate operational realities. Their tracing firearms process.
This sounds fascinating.
Yeah, when a trace request comes in, it triggers the microfilm department.
Microfilm? Seriously?
Seriously. This department houses over 500 million records, all in microfilm format. Employees manually search these microfilms using special readers, pulling cases from shelves to find the necessary information. Urgent requests can be turned around in 24 hours, but typically the process takes 5 or more days.
Wow.
This incredibly labor-intensive paper-based system exists because, by law, the ATF is prohibited from creating electronic databases of firearm owners. It's a stark example of how deeply legislative constraints, even decades old, can embed profound inefficiencies within a federal agency, forcing a low-tech approach in a high-tech world.
That's a truly remarkable detail. Given that labor-intensive tracing process, alongside what must be incredibly dangerous field operations, how does this translate into the daily reality for ATF agents? What kind of individual thrives or even, survives in this demanding environment?
Well, the daily reality for ATF agents is relentlessly demanding. They consistently face large caseloads, frequent interstate, and often overseas travel, sometimes for weeks at a time. They rank among the highest federal agencies in cases referred for prosecution and arrests made, which underscores the intensity of their work. Their investigations are high stakes, every interaction potentially deadly. Agents are rigorously taught caution and thoroughness, but when the situation escalates, they are expected to take control quickly and forcefully.
They have to.
Exactly. This is particularly critical because, as our source notes, suspects are often better armed than the ATF agents themselves, making securing the initiative absolutely paramount. This high-stress environment, often requiring them to blend in with criminal organizations on their turf, unfortunately leads many agents to use coping mechanisms, with drinking being specifically mentioned, highlighting the significant personal toll this work takes.
Our sources also highlight a unique investigative tool. The ATF is the only federal agency to use geographic profilers, analyzing connected crime locations to pinpoint where an offender might live alongside behavioral profilers. How does this specialized approach enhance their ability to tackle complex, violent crimes?
This unique capability underscores their highly specialized investigative approach. Behavioral profilers, often trained at the FBI's National Center for the Analysis of Violent Crime. They analyze crime scene behavior, testimonies, to assess a perpetrator's personality, motivations, patterns. Adding geographic profiling to that, which analyzes the spatial distribution of connected crime locations to pinpoint an offender's most probable area of residence or operation, provides a powerful layered tool. It allows them to not just understand who they're looking for, but where to find them.
That's smart.
Very. However, Despite these specialized capabilities, the ATF experiences significant areas of friction. They're constantly under intense public and political scrutiny, particularly from powerful lobbying groups like the National Rifle Association, which places their operations under a microscope. Furthermore, they often clash with other agencies, like the DEA, over jurisdictional claims, especially when tackling the same criminal organizations or serving warrants. This can lead to situations where agencies might unintentionally work at cross purposes, a constant challenge for the ATF.
From the domestic crime scenes managed by the ATF, we transition now to presidential protection, the highly visible side of the U.S. Secret Service. This agency, originally part of the Department of the Treasury, has a fascinating twofold mission. It's much more than just guarding VIPs, isn't it?
Absolutely. Their mandate, which evolved significantly after 9/11 and their transfer to the Department of Homeland Security, it involves both the immediate protective mission of national leaders and, just as critically, safeguarding the nation's financial infrastructure. With a 2015 budget of just over $1.6 billion, they are one of the smaller DHS agencies, yet incredibly elite and impactful. Their protective mission famously covers the safety of the president, vice president, their families, visiting heads of state. Simultaneously, their investigative mission focuses intensely on financial crimes like wire fraud, money laundering, and, historically, counterfeiting. It's a demanding dual role that requires a very specific type of individual and a unique operational philosophy.
Our sources describe their agents as smart and tough, comparing them to U.S. Special Operations Command, SCOM, in terms of their elite nature. What kind of mindset and specific training defines the Secret Service agent persona?
Yeah, the Secret Service agent persona is fundamentally defined by an almost hyper-vigilant paranoia. It has to be. Their job is to constantly evaluate worst-case scenarios, to anticipate and neutralize threats before they materialize. Experienced agents know exactly where to look for vulnerabilities. Single-exit buildings, blind corners, narrow roads that could become choke points.
Always scanning.
Always scanning.
Yeah.
They're expected to be hyper-vigilant with their head on a swivel. They're trained to watch for subtle signs like micro-expressions on people's faces, and particularly people's shoulders, which they consider dead giveaways of hostile intent, signaling an imminent attack. This constant assessment becomes second nature.
This leads to a particularly intriguing aspect of their work. Their approach to combat is fundamentally different from almost any other law enforcement or military organization. It's not about winning a firefight, is it?
You've hit on a core distinction.
Yeah.
Yeah, their absolute priority is not to take down a suspect or engage in a prolonged firefight, but rather to get the protectee away safely. That's job one. If that means emptying several magazines without hitting a target, purely to create suppressive fire and facilitate an immediate evacuation, so be it. This unique priority sets the Secret Service apart and profoundly shapes their operational philosophy. It redefines combat as ensuring a life rather than neutralizing a threat. They also utilize highly specialized units like the Counter Sniper Team, the Canine Explosives Detection Team, and the Counter Assault Team, or CAT, which is essentially a SWAT team specializing in defensive and suppressive combat, specifically designed to evacuate VIPs from immediate danger.
Beyond their visible protective role, they also have an incredibly important investigative side, using electronic crimes task forces, ECTFs, and the National Threat Assessment Center, NTSCE, to prevent attacks and investigate financial crimes. How does this less-known aspect contribute to their overall mission?
Their investigative side is crucial. The ECTFs are critical for addressing the growing threat of cybercrime and financial fraud, which often underpins larger criminal enterprises. The NTTCO focuses on preventing attacks by identifying and assessing individuals who pose a threat of targeted violence, which feeds directly into their protective mission. However, like many agencies, they face areas of friction. Their absolute priority on protecting their VIPs and their reluctance to relinquish control during operations often makes them unpopular with state and local law enforcement agencies.
I can imagine.
Yeah, our source states, the arrival of USSS is often seen with dread by local police, highlighting a perceived animosity or at least a significant challenge in operational cooperation. There can also be overlapping and sometimes redundant investigations with Treasury investigators, despite their close working relationship on financial crimes. This insular, control-oriented approach, while effective for their core mission, can create significant tension in interagency dynamics.
Okay, shifting our focus from land borders to maritime security, the U.S. Coast Guard occupies an incredibly unique space within the complex. It's both a branch of the armed forces and a federal law enforcement agency operating under the Department of Homeland Security. It's truly doing double duty.
This dual nature is absolutely one of its defining characteristics and sets it apart. Unlike other branches of the U.S. Armed Forces, which are generally constrained by the Posse Comitatus Act from widespread domestic law enforcement, the Coast Guard possesses expansive federal law enforcement powers. This means that all commissioned officers, warrant officers, and petty officers have arrest authority.
Interesting.
Their primary missions are incredibly expansive: maritime safety, security, search and rescue, environmental protection, and law enforcement in both U.S. and international waters. They are particularly active in regions like the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico, frequently interdicting drugs and illegal migrants. Their presence is truly ubiquitous across our waterways.
Our sources give us an incredible insight into their culture with the unofficial motto, "You have to go, but you don't have to come back." That sounds profoundly intense and really highlights the dangers they face. How does that motto shape the ethos and daily reality for coasties?
What's fascinating here is how profoundly that motto encapsulates their entire ethos. Professionalism over heroism. Coasties, as they're colloquially known, are explicitly taught that they aren't heroes in the conventional sense. Heroes in this context are seen as making stupid decisions, like diving into dangerous waters without proper safety protocols.
Makes sense.
Instead, they are professionals who are rigorously trained to save yourself so you can save others. This focus on self-preservation through professional competence and meticulous planning is absolutely paramount. They operate with an unrelenting operational tempo, often busiest during the worst weather or conditions, facing rough seas, darkness, bitter cold, equipment failure. This demanding environment fosters immense self-reliance and empowers junior officers with significant operational responsibility, far more than in other military branches. They deeply value practical solutions over strict adherence to procedure, often preferring to ask for forgiveness rather than permission, knowing that mission success and saving lives are the ultimate arbiters.
Their diverse missions, from drug interdiction to environmental protection, suggest a need for highly specialized units. Can you tell us about some of these elite teams and what they do?
Indeed. The Helicopter Interdiction Tactical Squadron, or HITRON, is an armed helicopter squadron that specializes in using precision fire to disable hostile watercraft, particularly in high-speed drug interdiction missions. Very cinematic stuff. Then there are tactical law enforcement teams, TACLETs, which conduct boarding, interdiction, and anti-piracy operations, often deploying aboard U.S. and allied naval vessels in international waters. The Maritime Security Response Team, MSRT, is the Coast Guard's primary SWAT equivalent, focused on maritime tactical entry and boarding of hostile vessels in high-threat scenarios. And finally, the National Strike Force, or NSF, provides critical technical personnel, like divers, and specialized equipment to respond to oil spills, hazardous material releases, and potential WMD incidents. These teams represent a vast array of highly specialized skills.
Our sources also highlight a distinction between cutters and boats within the Coast Guard fleet. That's not just a matter of size, is it? What does that distinction tell us about the nature of their assignments?
No, it's a very practical distinction with significant implications for personnel. A cutter is a ship 65 feet or longer that has accommodations for personnel to live aboard during extended patrols or missions. So if you're assigned to a cutter, your life is literally on that vessel for days, weeks, or even months at a time.
Wow.
Boats, on the other hand, are smaller vessels where personnel are assigned to a land-based facility, not the craft itself. This distinction reflects the different nature of their assignments, ranging from long-duration, open ocean sea patrols to shorter, localized operations in coastal or inland waterways.
The Coast Guard sounds like a highly effective organization, but like any large body within the complex, it must have its areas of friction. What are some of those challenges?
The Coast Guard generally enjoys a very good reputation for competence and effectiveness, often getting things done when other agencies can't. They're kind of the adaptable ones. However, they sometimes come into conflict with other law enforcement agencies like the DEA or IC due to overlapping mandates, especially concerning drug trafficking or illegal activities at points of entry. For instance, if traffickers are operating at a port, coasties and DEA agents might trip over one another due to miscommunication or parallel investigations. Similarly, ICE and Customs and Border Protection can have crossover mandates. While these can cause occasional friction, it's generally seen as a minor issue compared to their overall effectiveness and crucial role in maritime security. Their ability to operate across military and law enforcement lines, while a strength, can also be a source of occasional interagency tension.
Okay, now let's move into the shadows, to the intelligence community, and specifically the National Counterterrorism Center, or NCTC. Established after 9/11, it was given a truly crucial mandate to integrate terrorism intelligence across the entire government. Yet our sources reveal a surprising and frankly maybe disheartening struggle for this organization to fulfill that vital role. What's going on here?
Well, NCTC's primary role is indeed critical to analyze and integrate terrorism intelligence from across the vast, fragmented intelligence community, preparing assessments for policymakers and maintaining critical databases like the Terrorist Identities Data Mart Environment, or TIDE. However, despite this absolutely vital mission, it crucially lacks the statutory authority to require cooperation from its member agencies.
Ah, that's the key.
That's the key. This fundamental structural weakness means that the execution of its vital goals has been consistently lackluster. It's designed to be a central hub for intelligence, but it can't truly compel the spokes to connect, leaving it struggling to effectively consolidate and act upon intelligence. It lacks teeth.
That lack of authority seems like a fundamental flaw. Our sources further describe NCTC as often staffed by the expendable and forgettable, with other agencies sometimes sending junior analysts or those near retirement. How does this perception impact NCTC's effectiveness and the morale of those working there?
This perception is a major area of friction, and it's a significant impediment to NCTC's effectiveness. NCTC is frequently viewed by other more established intelligence agencies, particularly the CIA's Counterterrorism Center, which used to perform many of NCTC's functions, as ineffectual, amateurish, and disorganized. Harsh words.
Yeah.
Many detailees, personnel temporarily assigned from other agencies, often prioritize their home agency's interest, knowing they'll eventually return. Furthermore, NCTC struggles to find an appropriate audience for its analyses, as other agencies often prefer their in-house products, leading to a sense of redundancy. The NCTC operative persona often reflects this reality. They might feel like they drew the short straw on a familiarization tour that feels like a waste of time, knowing they are there because they were considered expendable by their primary organization.
Ouch.
Yeah, this fundamental lack of buy-in and perceived low status severely hampers its ability to fulfill its unifying mission.
From the broad counterterrorism scope of the NCTC, let's go to the specialized world of maritime intelligence with the Office of Naval Intelligence, or ONI. Established way back in 1882, it's actually the oldest member of the U.S. intelligence community. What kind of expertise defines an ONI analyst, and how does their work support naval operations?
ONI is known as the tip of the spear within the Navy, providing absolutely crucial analysis to the Navy, other warfighting forces, and national decision-makers. They focus heavily on technical analysis, particularly scrutinizing foreign military equipment and naval capabilities. An ONI analyst is incredibly focused on new technology, constantly tracking what militaries like Russia, China, and India are developing in terms of ships, submarines, missiles, aircraft. Their job is to break down raw intelligence, whether it's from imagery or signals, and give it a Navy touch, making it directly useful for naval decision-makers and helping to ensure the U.S. Navy maintains its technological edge.
This work sounds incredibly specialized and often involves poring over digital intelligence, like recovered cell phone transcripts or satellite imagery. Does this mean it's primarily a desk job, or is there a field component for ONI analysts?
You're right, much of their work is indeed in-depth analysis of digital intelligence. Travel is relatively rare for ONI analysts compared to, say, a DIA operative. However, when travel does occur, it's often with a large budget and surprisingly little oversight. Yeah. These trips might involve consulting at an embassy or debriefing a special operations team, leveraging their specific expertise in a field setting that requires their unique insights. What's interesting is that the agency's limited mandate, focused specifically on supporting the Navy, often helps it avoid stepping on too many toes within the broader, often competitive intelligence community. Their highly specialized niche focus allows them to operate with a certain degree of autonomy.
Even within the military's intelligence apparatus, though, our sources point out friction with other military branches' in-house intelligence units. Why do these rivalries exist, and what impact do they have?
This rivalry is a common thread across the service's intelligence communities. While they sometimes cooperate and share information, conflict and resentment are, unfortunately, more common. ONI often asserts its seniority and resources as the oldest military intelligence agency, while other branches' intelligence units insist they can better serve their specific branch's unique needs, arguing for their own expertise.
Turf wars.
Exactly. This constant tension over who is best positioned to provide certain types of intelligence can hinder seamless information sharing and create inefficiencies, despite the shared ultimate goal of national security. It's a classic case of organizational silos at play within the complex.
Okay, let's move to the undisputed masters of the digital domain, the National Security Agency, or NSA. This agency is at the absolute forefront of technical, electronic, and computer-driven espionage, responsible for global monitoring and signals intelligence. Their reach is truly global and often unseen.
With a budget estimated at more than $11 billion back in 2015, the NSA's mission is absolutely immense and encompasses two core pillars. It includes both defensive operations, like monitoring and protecting federal computer networks from cyber threats, and offensive capabilities, such as eavesdropping on radio, internet, and phone communications globally, with a particular focus on foreign nationals. Their secure communications mission involves protecting sensitive government communications from penetration, ensuring the integrity of our own systems. They are truly operating at the bleeding edge of the digital frontier, both defending and collecting.
A particularly intriguing aspect of the NSA is the inherent tension between its incredibly broad mandate for intelligence gathering and constitutional rights, especially concerning U.S. citizens. This is a very sensitive and often debated area. How does the NSA navigate this tightrope?
This is a critical and continually debated point, defining much of the NSA's public perception in internal challenges. While the NSA is legally limited by the Fourth Amendment regarding the targeting of U.S. citizens, legislation like the Patriot Act and subsequent laws have granted them broad discretion in bulk data collection. Our sources explicitly state that bulk data gathering does collect more intelligence on Americans, including domestically, than they are legally allowed to use.
Wow.
NSA employees are strictly instructed not to look at U.S. citizen data without a court order, but the act of gathering it itself is legal. Deciding what data is hot and warrants deeper review is described as more art than science, a difficult and subjective call that has, as we know from past events, led to embarrassment and intense public scrutiny. This tightrope walk between national security and privacy is a defining characteristic of the NSA.
Given this incredibly sensitive work, what kind of individual thrives in the NSA's highly demanding and secretive world? What's the NSA operative persona like?
It absolutely attracts a very particular kind of person. They tend to hire bookish types, coders, lawyers, electrical engineers, even white hat hackers, who are often recruited after run-ins with law enforcement, then paid well and given a purposeful mission. The work environment is described as being like a competitive grad school, where intelligence, analytical rigor, and problem-solving are highly valued. But the secrecy is truly pervasive. Your whole life is a secret. Employees are strictly instructed not to discuss their jobs outside of work, often leading them to date within the organization for ease, as their spouses or partners might also work for the NSA or another intelligence agency. This intense secrecy profoundly shapes their entire personal and professional lives.
And the work environment itself sounds incredibly intense and controlled, almost isolating. Can you describe what it's like to work day-to-day inside the NSA?
The sources detail how NSA employees spend their entire workday in a sensitive compartmented information facility, or SCIF. These are often windowless rooms or entire buildings, meticulously designed to prevent electronic signals from escaping and ensure absolute information security. Security teams regularly sweep for bugs, every keystroke is logged, and all activities are randomly audited. Internet access is heavily restricted, with NSA Net being almost completely separate from the public internet. This creates a very driven and work-focused personality among those who stay, as those who cannot handle being part of what some might call Big Brother don't last long. It's an environment of constant vigilance.
Our sources also mention the Five Eyes coordination. What does that refer to, and how does it expand the NSA's reach?
Five Eyes refers to the intelligence sharing agreement with the UK, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. It's a powerful and deeply integrated alliance, where everything the NSA collects is, by default, shared with these Five Eyes partners, though materials can be routinely restricted from view by foreign governments. This amplifies their global intelligence reach significantly, creating a vast network for signals intelligence collaboration.
Given all of this, the vast mandate, the privacy concerns, the intense secrecy, it's no surprise there are significant areas of friction for the NSA. What are these challenges?
Well, the WikiLeaks and Snowden scandals, as our source highlights, place the NSA under an intense microscope. Congress and the public are constantly questioning its mandate and potential violations of constitutional rights. Many legislators view the NSA's operations with suspicion, leading to a perpetual battle for public trust and justification of its methods. While they rarely conflict with other intelligence agencies internally due to their unique technical focus, this external scrutiny is constant and defining for the organization. It's a testament to the immense pressure that comes with operating at the intersection of cutting-edge technology and fundamental freedoms. Moving on, the Defense Intelligence Agency, or DIA, is the Pentagon's primary all-source intelligence agency. Our sources notably call it a chief rival to the CIA for intelligence analysis and covert operations. That sounds like a very competitive landscape within the intelligence community. How does this rivalry shape the DIA's mission and operations? It is indeed a competitive landscape. With a budget estimated over $2 billion in 2015, the DIA's primary focus is support to the warfighter, tracking threats to the U.S. military worldwide. This encompasses an incredibly broad spectrum, from foreign leader intent and scientific advances to medical intelligence and foreign economic infrastructure relevant to military operations. It's huge. Its Directorate of Operations actively carries out covert intelligence collection, and its Defense Clandestine Service, or DCS, deploys expert teams for human intelligence gathering, often training alongside CIA spies.
So direct overlap.
Direct overlap. This certainly fuels the rivalry you mentioned, as both agencies are vying for similar roles and resources within the complex.
Our sources called DIA employees an expeditionary workforce. What does this mean for someone working there, and what kind of commitment does it demand?
DIA fully expects its employees to travel extensively. Even office-bound analysts take familiarization trips, and as employees become more senior, travel increases dramatically. They deploy their workforce to conflict zones, areas of emerging threats, combatant commands, U.S. embassies, and allied military bases around the world. Securing travel approval is relatively easy due to a robust budget and a strong organizational culture that promotes travel as an essential part of the job, with professional but not overly diligent oversight, apparently. The playing DIA persona emphasizes that even civilian employees must conform to military standards, understanding rank and jargon across all services. Human collectors, in particular, are seen as alphas, expected to immerse themselves in foreign cultures, speak multiple languages, and make critical decisions independently in the field. It's an empowering but unforgiving environment where results are paramount and consistent failures mean being benched or transferred to a less impactful role.
And that rivalry with the CIA sounds like a constant undercurrent, shaping much of their operational approach. Can you elaborate?
Indeed, competition between DIA and CIA often runs deep. Case officers from both agencies might find themselves working at cross purposes while trying to recruit the best assets, as each organization sees itself as the premier member of the intelligence community, and often the most effective.
Right.
There's also friction with service branch intelligence bodies, such as the Office of Naval Intelligence, ONI. While they sometimes cooperate, conflict and resentment are more common, with DIA often pulling rank as the senior intelligence body with more resources, and ONI arguing that it can better serve its specific Navy customers. This complex web of alliances and rivalries defines much of the internal dynamics.
Let's transition to a truly fascinating agency within the complex, the National Geospatial-Intelligence Agency, or NGA. They are the leaders in geospatial intelligence, GeoWine, essentially using maps and imagery from satellites and aircraft for national security. It's like they're mapping the world's secrets from above.
With a budget over $5 billion in 2015, NGA serves a critical dual role. As a combat support agency, providing essential maps and targeting documents for military operations, and as an intelligence agency, creating strategic briefing documents, atlases, and battle damage assessments using imagery intelligence, or IMIT. They are truly at the forefront of utilizing data and imagery collected from space and high-altitude drones, providing an unparalleled view of the world. IMIT, for example, is literally visual intelligence derived from satellite or aerial photography. Their insights are foundational.
Our sources highlight programs like GeoCell and NGA Scope as incredible examples of their work. These demonstrate how practical and impactful their intelligence can be, often far beyond just simple map-making.
What's truly fascinating here is how directly practical and impactful their programs are. GeoCell, a joint NSA-NGA program, tracks terrorists by combining NSA's signal intercepts with NGA's satellite imagery to accurately pinpoint a call's point of origin. Really powerful stuff. Then there's NGA Scopy, which was formed during the war in Iraq to help troops on the ground by merging data from various sources to predict insurgent strikes and improvised explosive device IED placements. Our source also highlights NGA's absolutely instrumental role in Operation Neptune Spear, the mission to kill Osama bin Laden, where their imagery and architectural specialists created a laser radar and imagery-based replica of his compound.
Incredible detail.
Incredible detail. Beyond the military, they also provide near real-time maps for disaster recovery, like after Hurricane Katrina, even supporting civilian applications like Google Maps and Google Earth. They truly bring the world into incredibly sharp focus.
So, an NGA analyst must have an incredibly keen eye, scrutinizing the smallest details. What kind of work environment and demands define the playing NGA persona?
NGA analysts are indeed trained to scrutinize the most minute details of imagery and electronic data, producing reports that can range from counting armored vehicles at a military depot to identifying the exact location of ventilation shafts at a supposedly hidden facility. The playing NGA persona describes a work environment that is intellectually stimulating, fast-paced, and demanding. NGA analysts are often the first line for discovering the weird and the surprising. If a satellite or reconnaissance drone picks up something out of the ordinary, NGA is tasked with figuring it out or, if need be, discreetly covering it up. They're at the nexus of discovery and information control.
Our sources mention that NGA's analysis sets the tone for further research by other intelligence agencies. That gives them a very foundational and influential role, doesn't it?
This highlights their foundational and influential role within the intelligence community. Yeah, their analysis is widely reused and recycled across the IC, making their insights highly sought after by organizations like NSA, NCTC, and CIA. It's often the initial intelligence upon which further, deeper investigations are built. However, despite this vital role, the culture can be heavily influenced by ex-military personnel, particularly within management. Our source mentions civilian employees sometimes experiencing managers who yell at the top of their lungs to inspire longer, harder work,
Oh boy.
which can lead to resentment for those who don't adapt to that thinly veiled military structure and approach to motivation. So, some internal friction there too.
Our final stop in the intelligence world, and perhaps the most secretive agency within the complex, is the National Reconnaissance Office, or NRO. They literally build and maintain America's secret intelligence satellites. Their very existence was classified for decades.
The NRO's existence was indeed secretly established in 1961 and only officially declassified in 1992, which tells you something about its profound level of secrecy and strategic importance. With a budget exceeding $10 billion in 2015, they're responsible for designing, building, launching, and maintaining satellites for imagery intelligence, INT, signals intelligence, SIGINT, which means intercepted communications, and measurement and signature intelligence, MAINT, which analyzes things like weapons characteristics or unique emissions. These systems are absolutely crucial for global communications, providing early warning of missile launches and potential military aggression, and supporting counterterrorism efforts worldwide. They are literally the eyes and ears in orbit.
That sounds like an environment of intense security and incredibly high stakes. What kind of individual thrives in the NRO, and how does the extreme secrecy shape the daily work experience?
The playing NRO persona reveals an office environment that is literally one enormous SCI, a sensitive, compartmented information facility. Information security and internet protocols are top priorities, and employees are constantly reminded they have no right to privacy at work, with security personnel routinely reviewing everything they do on their computers.
Constant surveillance.
Constant surveillance. However, this intense security is balanced by the thrill of working on incredibly cool projects with the best professionals in the business. Morale is routinely high because the NRO is seen as a highly desirable place for interagency work, attracting top talent from the Air Force, CIA, NGA, and NSA. It's a unique blend of demanding secrecy, high-impact innovation, and a collective sense of mission.
Our sources mention NRO's leadership encourages creativity, exploring non-standard ways of presenting findings, including patterns of life projects. This sounds fascinating and perhaps a bit Big Brother-ish, but incredibly sophisticated in its analytical depth.
What's fascinating here is NRO's leadership actively encourages creativity, pushing past conventional intelligence reporting. Patterns of life projects are a prime example. These involve processing massive data sets derived from satellite imagery and electronic data to identify routine patterns in targets' daily lives, and then flagging any abnormal or unusual behaviors. This exemplifies their innovative approach to remote intelligence gathering, moving beyond static images to dynamic, predictive analysis.
While deeply secretive, the NRO seems to have a good reputation for cooperation across the intelligence community, which isn't always the case, as we've heard. Why is that?
Yes, their highly technical and specialized role means they generally don't step on other agencies' toes. They are well regarded throughout the government, especially by the Air Force, NGA, and NSA, all of whom rely heavily on NRO's satellite data as a foundational input for their own intelligence work. Their unique contribution means they are an essential partner rather than a direct competitor, fostering good working relationships across the complex. They provide the raw, essential data everyone else needs.
Okay, let's come back to Earth and shift our focus to something perhaps more familiar, yet equally complex: our national parks. The National Park Service, or NTS. They manage our national parks, monuments, historical properties. They have a fascinating dual role, don't they, balancing preservation with public access.
Absolutely. NPS is charged with the critical dual role of both preserving the ecological and historical integrity of these national treasures and making them available and accessible for public enjoyment. It's a delicate balance. With a budget of approximately $3 billion in 2015, they manage over 400 units, a term encompassing parks, monuments, battlefields, historic sites. Their diverse workforce includes scientists, archaeologists, historians, and highly specialized firefighters, all working to maintain this balance.
Park ranger is a term many of us know, perhaps from a family vacation, but our sources reveal a much more multifaceted and demanding career path, especially for protection rangers who are actually federal law enforcement. What does this truly mean for someone working there, often in incredibly remote areas?
A park ranger's job can indeed involve a complex blend of law enforcement, environmental expertise, and public education. The Investigative Services Branch, or ISB, employs federal agents who handle long-term or complex crimes committed on NPS land. But here's the striking detail. Fewer than 40 ISB agents cover the entire United States.
40, that's it.
40, that's it. This means they often do it all, from initial discovery to gathering evidence and paperwork, sometimes in extremely remote and challenging environments like at the bottom of steep cliffs or in the middle of rivers, often at night, in bad weather, carrying their own gear. They are described as a scrappy service that embraces taking the lead on investigations with incredibly limited resources and little chance of calling in reinforcements. Their self-reliance is truly remarkable.
And then there are the Type 1 hotshots, elite wildland firefighters. This sounds incredibly dangerous, facing an almost primal adversary in massive wildfires. What kind of physical and mental fortitude does that demand?
It is, intensely so. These are highly trained interagency hotshot crews, typically 18 to 20-person teams, who battle the most serious wildfires. They're often deployed abroad if requested and work grueling 16-hour shifts, sometimes extending to 48, 64 hours for months at a time, with sleep deprivation and exhaustion being common.
Unbelievable.
Their crew haulers, large, rugged off-road vehicles, become their homes during peak fire season. The playing NPS persona for these firefighters describes them as being at war with an inhuman, uncaring, voracious entity facing mortality as a very real threat. They carry scars that can go toe-to-toe with any of the combat arms. This high demand for teamwork, self-reliance, and sheer endurance in austere, dangerous environments is absolutely paramount, as backup is often days away. It's a testament to incredible courage.
When disaster strikes, whether it's a hurricane, an earthquake, or a widespread flood, FEMA is often the agency we hear about. Its primary purpose is to coordinate disaster response, particularly when local and state resources are completely overwhelmed. How does this critical agency scale its operations?
FEMA's personnel numbers fluctuate dramatically. It's a relatively small agency during quiet periods, but it swells significantly in personnel and budget during crises. With over half of its nearly 10,000 personnel being reservists, employed on a part-time or temporary basis. With a budget of $10.4 billion in 2015, their core focus is on training first responders and preparing for both natural disasters and potential weapons of mass destruction incidents. They are designed to be the federal government's safety net when all else fails.
A particularly intriguing aspect of FEMA's response are their incredibly specialized teams, like the National Disaster Medical System, NDMS, and Urban Search and Rescue, USNR. These are the unsung heroes who arrive in the immediate aftermath, performing critical, life-saving functions. Can you tell us more about what these teams do?
These teams are absolutely crucial. NDMS includes Rapid Deployment Force, or RDF, medical personnel who are often the first on-site, sometimes prepositioning ahead of anticipated events. They also have disaster medical assistance teams, DMETs providing mobile medical care in devastated areas, and even disaster mortuary operational response teams, DMORTs, for critical forensic services in the most tragic circumstances.
Grim work.
Very grim, but necessary. Urban search and rescue task forces deploy within 24 hours to rescue victims of structural collapses, transportation accidents, or mine collapses. And mobile emergency response support, MERS, teams are vital for repairing communications infrastructure during outages, reestablishing critical links. These teams represent a vast array of highly specialized skills ready to deploy into chaos.
This sounds like a high-stress, high-impact job, especially during an active disaster. What's the playing FEMA persona like, and what are the unique challenges faced by these responders?
The playing FEMA persona highlights a core of do-gooders and ordinary people who are motivated by a profound sense of purpose, despite frequent public criticism. They expect to be sent into serious crises where law and order have failed, and they rely heavily on their team for support and efficiency. Practicality is their watchword, aiming to protect people and property quickly and efficiently with limited resources.
But that focus on practicality can backfire.
It can. While necessary in a crisis, it can sometimes lead to being perceived as tone-deaf to the nuanced needs and concerns of affected communities, particularly minority groups. This unfortunately feeds into areas of friction for the agency. High-profile logistical failures and even right-wing conspiracy theories often put FEMA at odds with the public and Congress, making a very difficult job even harder and constantly under scrutiny.
From terrestrial disasters to the cosmos, NASA is the U.S. government's leader in civilian space and high-atmosphere operations, developing aerospace technologies and conducting deep space missions. This truly sounds like a dream job for many, to be part of something so pioneering.
For many, working at NASA truly is like winning the lottery. With a budget of $1.8 billion in 2015, it's an environment filled with incredibly smart, often surprisingly friendly people, working on cutting-edge equipment, some of which is decades ahead of what you'd find elsewhere. Astronauts are, of course, the best-known employees, but they represent a very small fraction of the 18,000 civil servants and 40,000 contractors. Most are scientists, engineers, and crucial support staff, all united in pushing the boundaries of human knowledge.
A particularly intriguing aspect of NASA is the incredible emphasis on safety, almost an obsession after all the visible failures throughout its history. That must be a constant, intense pressure fundamentally shaping their operations.
What's truly fascinating here is how safety is their absolute uncompromising top priority. Funding is always precarious, and project failures, as we've seen with high-profile incidents, are spectacular and expensive, inevitably leading to congressional inquiries and intense public scrutiny.
Right, the stakes are incredibly high.
Incredibly high. The mantra at NASA is unequivocally sweat the small stuff. Employees are rigorously taught to check their work, recheck it, check it again, and then check someone else's work. Fail-safes and redundancies are paramount in every single process. The guiding principle is clear. It is better to get it right than do it quickly, because the consequences of failure are so profound, both in terms of human life and national prestige.
Our sources also mention a SWAT equivalent team at the Kennedy Space Center. That's a surprising detail for a scientific organization. What is their role?
Yes, the Kennedy Space Center Emergency Response Team, or EAR. They patrol the grounds and protect the facility from intrusion, which includes everything from launch gantries to sensitive equipment and highly volatile chemicals. They train heavily in vertical environments and are skilled in the selective use of force, particularly critical given the unique and hazardous nature of a launch facility. It's a very specialized kind of protection.
Despite the prestige and groundbreaking work, our sources point to areas of friction for NASA. What are these challenges?
NASA constantly struggles to prove its worth and justify its considerable expenditures to Congress and the public, many of whom, as the source notes, view its mission as a waste of taxpayer money in the face of more immediate terrestrial concerns. They are in a perpetual battle for consistent funding and robust public support. There's also occasional friction with other agencies that operate in space, like NGA, NRO, and the Air Force, over credit and funding for projects with similar mandates or overlapping areas of research in the space domain. Even at the frontiers of exploration, bureaucratic realities persist.
When we talk about cutting-edge technology for the military, we are invariably talking about DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. What makes this particular agency so unique in how it operates within the complex, especially given its outsized impact?
DARPA, with a budget of almost $3 billion in 2015, is indeed an organizational oddity within the complex. It has a remarkably low personnel count, only about 220 government employees, including just 100 program managers, but a very high budget.
How does that work?
The reason for this efficiency is that they don't run their own labs. Instead, they function primarily as a funding agency. They identify interesting, often unconventional, ideas, assign program managers, and then generously fund external companies, universities, and other agencies to conduct the research, typically for a finite period of 3 to 5 years. This unique model allows them to pursue high-risk, high-reward projects.
A particularly intriguing aspect of DARPA is how it's credited with influencing countless non-military fields far beyond just defense. Their impact on modern life is truly astonishing, isn't it?
Yes, DARPA-funded projects have quite literally changed the world and shaped modern life in ways many people don't realize. Think about it. The very origins of the internet. Phased array radars, infrared imaging, composite materials, voice recognition software, autonomous vehicles and robotics, high-energy lasers, graphical user interfaces for computers.
Wow, quite a list.
Many of these foundational technologies were significantly influenced, if not directly born from, DARPA's investments. They exist to bridge the gap between fundamental research and practical military application, but their breakthroughs have had enormous, often unexpected, civilian impact.
This sounds like an intense, challenging, and incredibly empowering role, especially for a program manager at DARPA. What kind of individual thrives in that environment where they're essentially handed a blank check and told to innovate?
The playing DARPA persona describes an environment of intense pressure and constantly ticking clocks. Project leaders, often recruited as technical and scientific innovators and frequently fish out of water in a traditional bureaucracy, are handed impressive funding and simply told to go. They often make up the parameters for success as the project develops, pushing boundaries with what's described as huge egos and short tempers, but also achieving amazing results.
Sounds intense.
Very. Support staff, called SETAs and SMEs, need to be open-minded and use bureaucratic creativity to overcome obstacles, ensuring the program managers can focus on the groundbreaking research. It's a fast-paced, high-stakes environment where innovation, not bureaucracy, is the key metric.
And our sources mention they actively poach top talent, which must create some tension within the complex. How does DARPA manage that?
This is a key area of friction. While their budget is generally safe from congressional cuts, DARPA maintains a low profile for its more off-the-wall projects to avoid raising the ire of legislators. The organizations they poach top project leaders and technical staff from are often reluctant to give up their best people, even temporarily. However, these same organizations are often vying for lucrative DARPA contracts, making it a complex trade-off where the temporary loss of top talent is seen as an acceptable cost for potential future contracts and the immense prestige of association with DARPA's cutting-edge work.
Our final research agency takes us to the critical realm of nuclear security. The National Nuclear Security Administration, or NNSA. They maintain the U.S. nuclear weapons stockpile and are deeply involved in non-proliferation and counterterrorism efforts. What's the profound significance of their mission?
The NNSA's mission is truly profound. With a budget of approximately $12.5 billion in 2015, they operate highly specialized facilities like Los Alamos and Sandia National Laboratories. Since international legislation prohibits nuclear detonations for research, they rely heavily on supercomputers for complex simulations to maintain and improve the safety, reliability, and performance of the U.S. nuclear weapons stockpile without actual physical testing. This requires incredible scientific and engineering expertise.
A particularly intriguing aspect of NNSA is the Office of Secure Transportation and its courier agents. This sounds like something straight out of a movie, guarding nuclear materials on the road. Can you describe their unique role and the intense training they undergo?
What's truly fascinating here is the specialized nature and intense demands placed on these courier agents. Often former special operations forces, they undergo months of intensive federal law enforcement training. They are explicitly authorized by the Atomic Energy Act to use deadly force to protect nuclear assets.
The deadly force authorized. Wow.
Yes. They staff a fleet of over 3 dozen armored, custom-built, safe and secure trailers, or SSTs, tractor trailers, designed to safely carry nuclear material. During convoy runs, these SSTs are escorted by at least 2 armored SUVs, each with at least 3 armed couriers. These couriers are described as no-nonsense and quick to deploy their weapons no matter how innocuous the situation appears. Equipped with M4 carbines, MP5s, body armor, flashbangs, it's a high-stakes, hyper-vigilant operation.
They also have rapid response teams for nuclear incidents. How do these specialized teams prepare for and respond to such a catastrophic scenario?
Yes, the Nuclear Emergency Support Team, or NEST. NEST task forces deploy a multidisciplinary group of scientists, medical personnel, and explosive ordnance disposal, EOD, experts to identify, render safe, and dispose of radioactive devices. These teams are ready to deploy at all times with dedicated transport and detection craft, ranging in size from small technical advisory teams to deployments of dozens of personnel. Their mission is to provide critical technical assistance in incidents involving nuclear materials. They're the ultimate line of defense against nuclear threats.
This sounds like incredibly technical and demanding work. What kind of individual thrives in the NNSA, and what's the corporate culture like, particularly in contrast to the private sector?
The playing NNSA persona describes highly educated individuals with strong work ethics, often holding advanced degrees in nuclear science or physics. They find the work exciting and highly technical, drawn to the critical mission. They particularly value the strong work-life balance that NNSA promotes, which is often a significant contrast to the relentless pace of many private sector jobs.
But there's a downside.
There is. They also face significant areas of friction internally. NNSA has a reputation as a rigid old boys network with low turnover, particularly at the highest ranks, making promotion difficult for new employees. This leads to frustrated lower and mid-level staff who see promotions based on connections rather than merit, resulting in occasional low morale despite the fascinating nature of the work itself.
Now we turn to an agency often associated with something far less glamorous. The Internal Revenue Service, or IRS. We often associate them with tax forms and audits, certainly not with armed agents. But our sources reveal they have an incredibly powerful investigative and law enforcement division, the Criminal Investigation, or CI division. What's the true scope of their power?
That's right. The CI division is absolutely critical, combating tax fraud, money laundering, and currency crime violations. What's truly remarkable is their effectiveness. They possess the highest conviction rate of any federal law enforcement body. The highest. This commands significant respect from other agencies within the complex and gives them a unique position and leverage within the federal law enforcement community, even if their public image doesn't always reflect this formidable capability. They're much more than just accountants.
So what kind of specialized skill set is required for an IRS CI agent, and what does their investigative approach look like, particularly when they're serving a warrant?
What's truly fascinating here is the IRS CI agent persona. These are smart, patient, and incredibly detail-oriented individuals who are comfortable with arcane tax regulations, digital forensics, and navigating complex bureaucracy in a way most other law enforcement officers cannot fathom. Unlike many other agents, they think in terms of systems and schemes, not just individual criminals. When serving a warrant, often with U.S. Marshal support, their priority is to secure the suspect's computer before they can encrypt or erase data, having often already mined the data remotely.
All proactive.
Very. Our sources highlight that the IRS CI badge strikes fear into everyone, because most Americans don't realize the IRS has its own armed law enforcement arm, leading to moments of panic even in upstanding individuals who might not be directly involved in criminal activity but are simply intimidated by the IRS's reach and reputation.
And areas of friction for the IRS are perhaps the most universally recognized. It's an agency that few people love, often becoming a political football. How does this pervasive public and political animosity impact their operations?
Indeed. The IRS is widely disliked, often seen as a necessary evil or even active evil, and a frequent scapegoat for politicians of all stripes. This widespread public animosity often leads to funding cuts, as cost savings at the IRS are unlikely to elicit public backlash. Such an environment fosters a risk-averse work culture where efficiency is prioritized over innovation. This can sometimes lead to less investigation of complex, high-value crimes in favor of quicker, smaller ones, further exacerbating the perception challenges they face. It's a constant struggle.
Now we turn to the private sector's involvement in the complex, specifically the Constellus Group, formerly known as Academy, and before that, Blackwater. This is where the lines between government and private operation become quite blurred and often controversial. What is Constellus's role in this intricate network?
Constellus provides critical training and security services, counterterrorism support, and contracts specialized technical personnel to governments worldwide. With over 8,000 employees in the U.S. and 17,000 globally, many are former military or law enforcement. They are indeed a conglomeration of various security firms, including the notorious Blackwater, which merged with Triple Canopy to form Constellus. This history is crucial.
Yeah, that Blackwater name carries weight.
It does. They fill vital, often dangerous roles that governments might not want to staff directly.
A particularly intriguing aspect of Constellus is how our sources state that the company continues to try to outpace its Blackwater legacy, which involved violent scandals and convictions in the 2000s. That's a heavy shadow to operate under. How does that legacy shape their corporate culture and the daily reality for their contractors?
That legacy still casts a dark cloud over Constellus, particularly with lawmakers and the media. The company is often seen as a necessary evil by both its employers and host governments, highlighting the complex moral landscape they navigate. The plain Constellus persona reveals a culture where attitude is everything. Employees are constantly told to remember that the client is in charge, and if you piss off the wrong person, you could be on a plane home the next day.
No safety net.
None. There's no job security, high turnover, and the adage, look out for number one, always is paramount. They emphasize verbal judo communication under pressure as more valuable than weapons, as it can de-escalate situations and impress clients by avoiding costly conflict, which is crucial for their contracts.
So it's a high-stakes, cutthroat environment with little job security. What are the implications of this for the individuals working for Constellus?
Yes. While armed contractors are generally paid well, their jobs are inherently not secure, and support staff often feel deprioritized. Summary terminations and mass layoffs are not uncommon, underscoring the transactional nature of their employment. It's a very results-driven, mercenary environment where individual performance, adherence to strict operational protocols, and above all, client satisfaction are the only metrics that truly matter. Loyalty is often to the contract, not the company.
From private military contractors, we move to the giants of the defense industry. Lockheed Martin, the world's largest defense contractor, responsible for some of the most advanced aerospace, defense, and technology projects. They are a true industrial titan within the complex. What is the sheer scope of their influence?
Lockheed Martin is indeed a Goliath, with its contracts accounting for over 10% of the Pentagon's budget in 2015 alone. Their products range from iconic aircraft like the SR-71 Blackbird and the F-16 Fighting Falcon, but a significant portion of their sales now come from information systems and space systems, not just aircraft. They're also diversifying, investing in areas like healthcare systems, renewable energy, and even compact nuclear fusion, showcasing a very broad technological reach. Their innovations power much of the U.S. military and intelligence capabilities.
A particularly intriguing aspect of Lockheed Martin is their famed Skunk Works. This sounds like a real-world Q branch from a spy movie, where cutting-edge, almost futuristic technology is developed in secret. What goes on there?
What's truly fascinating here is the Advanced Development Programs, or ADP, informally known as Skunk Works. This autonomous program grants engineers and scientists considerable leeway to explore disruptive, next-generational, or cutting-edge technologies. It was partly responsible for incredible breakthroughs in stealth technology and transatmospheric flight. The security environment within Skunk Works is described as particularly intense, demanding operational security at all times, reflecting the highly classified nature of their work. It's a place where innovation and secrecy are paramount.
What kind of corporate culture defines Lockheed Martin, especially in such a high security and high performance environment like Skunk Works? What does it demand of its employees?
The playing Lockheed persona describes working for a game changer. The corporate culture generally aims to retain the best and brightest with competitive salaries, good benefits, and a solid work-life balance. However, if you work at Skunk Works, your social circle likely revolves around other Skunk Works employees because you simply cannot talk about your project even during off hours.
Total secrecy.
Total secrecy. Employees are beholden to two masters, Lockheed itself and the government client, balancing corporate expectations with client satisfaction. You are explicitly expected to produce, and underperforming means you won't be fired, but you'll likely be moved to a different, less sensitive program. The pressure is intense.
And they face constant aggressive competition and scrutiny over costs, which must be a significant challenge for such a massive company reliant on government contracts.
Lockheed Martin is in aggressive, ongoing competition with other engineering giants like Boeing, Raytheon, and General Dynamics for multi-million-dollar contracts. They have a persistent reputation for being expensive and for cost overruns, which frequently brings them to loggerheads with government oversight boards and Congress. This constant scrutiny over their expenditures is a significant area of friction, forcing them to continuously justify their programs and pricing.
Rounding out our look at the private sector's government involvement, we have CCI International Inc. and Booz Allen Hamilton Inc. These companies are key players in providing specialized contractors to government and private industry. Our sources point out that Edward Snowden was a BAH contractor. This really highlights the potential for catastrophic breaches when you outsource such sensitive roles. How do these firms fit into the complex?
Absolutely. These companies fulfill a crucial need within the complex, providing pre-cleared, qualified experts in intelligence, analytics, technology, cybersecurity, and engineering without the significant lag time and bureaucratic hurdles associated with internal government hirings. They strategically target both recent graduates with advanced technical degrees and experienced retirees from government and military, often contracting them back to agencies like the CIA, NRO, NGA, and NSA. Both CCI and BAH are aggressively focused on counterterrorism contracts, filling critical gaps in government capabilities. The Snowden example starkly illustrates the inherent risks of this model, where a contractor, though vetted, can still cause immense damage, raising questions about control and oversight.
What kind of career path defines someone working for CACI or Booz Allen Hamilton? It sounds like you're technically outside the government, but deeply embedded within it.
The playing KCI and BH persona reveals that many employees desired government or nonprofit work and found this route. They often work directly in government buildings, with their client acting as their day-to-day boss, blurring the lines. There's a particular art to fulfilling a contract. It's not about being productive, it is about looking productive and keeping the client happy.
Oof, sounds cynical.
It can be. This can mean smiling and quietly redoing work when clients change expectations or goals, no matter how outrageous the demands. While you gain an expansive understanding of various government agencies, your career is inherently tied to contract cycles, offering less stability than direct government employment. It's a unique professional tightrope walk.
And the competition for contracts amongst these firms must be intense, further shaping that environment.
CACI and BAH are constant rivals for contracts in the defense, security, and intelligence sectors, competing aggressively with other major players like SAIC. Despite this internal rivalry among contractors, these companies are generally viewed positively by the government as they fill critical, high-demand technical roles that government salaries might not otherwise secure. They also provide valuable soft landing spots for retirees from government and military service, allowing agencies to retain expertise indirectly, making them an indispensable, if sometimes controversial, part of the complex.
Our final stop on this journey through the complex is the RAND Corporation, a nonprofit policy and research think tank that has profoundly influenced U.S. policy on issues from the space race to healthcare. This truly sounds like the realm of big ideas where intellect meets policy.
RAND, with a 2015 endowment of $230 million, is renowned for its politically unbiased, forward-thinking programs, often employing rigorous quantitative methods from fields like economics and the physical sciences. They conduct extensive research for governments, international organizations, and private companies and foundations. Their reputation for intellectual honesty and challenging conventional wisdom is a core part of their identity.
Our sources highlight RAND's history of generating controversial yet incredibly influential reports, which have actually shaped major historical events. They aren't afraid to publish findings that could be unpopular or even deeply unsettling, are they?
What's truly fascinating here is RAND's history of generating controversial yet incredibly influential reports that have directly shaped significant policy. In the 1950s, for instance, they mathematically argued for a first strike against the Soviet Union, a deeply provocative idea. In the 1960s, their reports laid crucial groundwork for intervention in Southeast Asia, which sadly contributed to U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War. Later, their health industry research was used to argue against universal health care, and they even questioned the utility of public projects like hydroelectric dams. This history of tackling sensitive subjects has led to continuous scrutiny from watchdog groups. But RAND prides itself on its intellectual honesty, explicitly stating it will not tolerate bias in its research, prioritizing rigorous, data-driven conclusions above all else.
What kind of environment defines the playing RAND persona? It sounds like a highly challenging intellectual space, attracting a very specific type of mind.
The playing RAND persona attracts the best and brightest in science and humanities, selling itself as a place where radical ideas and the scientific method can genuinely become policy. Researchers are consistently challenged to stay away from the safe, and in their culture, failure is just as important as success as long as it's part of a rigorous intellectual pursuit and leads to new understanding.
That's a healthy attitude.
It is. RAND prides itself on intellectual honesty, explicitly stating they will not tolerate bias in their findings. They also foster immense diversity, with nearly 50% of their staff being non-American and graduate students from over 20 countries. This heterogeneity, they believe, actively drives creativity and productive challenge, making it a truly unique intellectual melting pot.
Wow, what an incredible journey through the complex. We've seen the sheer scale and specialization that underpins our society. From the detailed vigilance of a CBP agent to the clandestine world of NRO satellites, the intense challenges of wildland firefighters, and the cutting-edge innovation of DARPA.
Indeed. This exploration truly reveals not just the mandates and budgets, but the unique cultures, profound responsibilities, and often deep-seated internal frictions that define these organizations. We've seen how dedicated individuals operate under immense pressure, with surprising details like ATF's manual microfilm archives or the Secret Service's evacuate, don't engage combat philosophy. It's a testament to the intricate, interconnected, and often unseen machinery that underpins our national security, public safety, and scientific future, constantly adapting to new threats and technologies.
It's a constant reminder that the lines between public service and private enterprise, between the visible and the deeply secret, are often blurred in ways we rarely consider. This complex is constantly evolving, adapting to new threats, technologies, and political landscapes, always striving to be one step ahead.
As you consider the vastness of these operations, from the granular data of the NSA to the global reach of Lockheed Martin, how might this intricate web of human and technological power continue to reshape not just our national security, but the very fabric of innovation, information, and control in the decades to come?
Thank you for joining us on the Uncanny Valley podcast.